Hey guys, Chris Kelly here with ProductionCrate.com. Today I'm going to teach you how to make that fantasy sword effect you just saw. So I have my composition all set up with my footage. The first thing I'm going to do is a little color correction and a little color grading. So the first thing I notice when I'm looking at the shot is the white balance is slightly off. It's a little too orange. So the way I usually correct that is by creating a new solid. You can do that by hitting Control Y. And I select the eyedropper and try and find a bright yellow or bright orange color. So up here by the windowsill looks pretty good. Right around there. So it's almost white, but not quite. It's a little bit in the yellow. So I'm just going to hit OK. OK. And down here in mode, I'm going to toggle that down, and I'm going to find where it says divide. And what that does is it takes this pale yellow color and it removes it from the shot. So if I turn that off, you can see before, and this is after. And it did get blown out a little bit here. So what I'm going to do is create a new solid, and if I actually make it brighter and do the divide again, that'll preserve a little bit more of the detail. So this is already looking a lot better, but it's way too bright. It's a little blown out. So what I'm going to do is create an adjustment layer by Control-Alt-Y, and that creates a new adjustment layer. And over here in the effects and presets, I'm going to type in levels. I'm going to select this levels, drag it on over to my adjustment layer, and let's just grab this arrow, drag it to the right, and make everything a bit darker. And it's really starting to come together right now. I think there's a little too much red in this shot. So up here in channels, I'm going to select red, and let's just drag this red down a bit. That's looking better. All right, we're almost there. I think adding a vignette would be really nice. So what I'm going to do is create a new solid, Control Y. Let's make this a black solid. And I'm going to try and stay organized. So let's name this. Alrighty. And up here, I'm going to find the ellipse tool. I'm going to double click on that, and they'll automatically add it to my solid. On my mask, I'm going to change this to subtract. I'm going to hit F for feather. Let's feather this out a little bit. And it's starting to go. I'm going to hit T, which brings up opacity. And let's bring this down maybe around 74. Looks pretty good. Now this shot is good. I think it's actually just a little too saturated. So back in my effects and presets panel, I'm going to type in hue. That brings up my hue and saturation, which I'm going to bring onto my adjustment layer. And let's just bring this down a touch. I think right around -20 looks good. And maybe let's darken up the levels just a touch more. Cool, so that's the shot. This is without any color correction or any grading, and then this is with. So the next thing I want to do to get the blade to appear is get a clean plate for the background. So I'm going to go ahead and name this footage. And I'm going to Control D to duplicate it. And I'm going to right click and pre-compose. Move all attributes in new composition. Great. And I'm going to rename this clean plate. And while I'm at it, I'm going to name this white balance and color. All right, let's go into the clean plate pre-comp. So for the clean plate, I need this area to have no blade. That way, when we eventually do the roto to remove the blade, we'll just have this clean wooden fence in the background. So I'm going to just find an area in my footage that the blade is removed. Just going to right click, go to time, freeze frame. Awesome. Now I just want to confirm this works. So I'm going to go back to my comp, select my footage. I'm going to hit Q, which will bring up the ellipse. And I'm going to draw a circle around the sword. I'm going down to my mask here. I'll put that on subtract. And this is just to check it out and make sure the clean plate works. So that looks pretty good. The blade is removed. And we are all set. So I'll delete that mask for now. And the next step would be to roto. So the best way I found to roto this was actually bringing it into Mocha. Mocha does come with After Effects, so if you have After Effects, you should have Mocha. So I'm going to select my footage, I'm going to go up to animation, and I will go track in Mocha AE. And I've already gone all through all this once before, so when I hit OK, it's going to tell me that it already exists. That doesn't matter. I'm going to hit yes. Great, and here are our in and out points brought in from After Effects. This is our footage. Obviously it's not graded because all the coloring was done in After Effects. So what I want to do is draw a mask or spline around this blade to get rid of it. In this shot there's a lot of motion blur because I didn't shoot this with a fast enough shutter. But I know that Mike holds the sword a lot steadier at the end. So I'm just going to jump to the last frame where I know the blade is going to be pretty static and there's going to be no motion blur. I'm going to go up here and select this X spline. I'm going to hit Z. I'm going to hold Z. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag in. I'm going to do that again. And then to navigate with this little hand, I'm going to hit X, and that just lets me click on the screen and drag around. And if I let go, the X spline is selected again. So let's zoom in a little bit tighter. I'm just going to click and start drawing around here. So I have one hand on Z right now, or one finger on Z and one finger on X. And that just lets me kind of navigate around to draw. I'll try and keep it clean, but I will also try and keep it fast. Right here, this hilt portion is kind of the only detail we want to preserve. For the rest of the blade, we just need to get rid of it. The clean plate will take care of the rest. So from here on out, I'm going to be a little looser. We actually want to have a little extra room around the blade, because as we saw in the first frame, there's going to be a fair amount of motion blur, and we don't want any motion blur breaking this mask. We don't want any portion of the blade breaking this mask. We want it all contained to this. So I'm just going to try and speed it up, mask around here. I'm just going to right click once my masking is done. And I'm at the last frame, so I'm going over here to track, and I'm just going to track backwards. But before I do that, I'm going to zoom out. One thing I'm going to keep an eye on is the end here, the tip of the sword, and then down by the hilt. I'm just going to watch the mask, and if something weird starts to happen or the mask goes off, I'm just going to stop it. I'm going to adjust those mask points, and then I'm going to keep tracking. So this process can be a little time consuming, but it's definitely better than just rotoing by hand. So I'm going to off click so I can see this clean line without all those little curve handles, and I'm just going to click track backwards. So it looks like we're getting pretty close up here to the top, so I'm just going to push in, zoom in, and check, see if we're okay. It looks like it did pass at some point, so I'm just going to go forward and find out at what point did that happen. Okay, it looks like right around here we're good, so I'm going to go back, click, let's just adjust a couple of these points. You can actually click and drag and select multiple, and let's just try and buy ourselves a little extra freedom. Alright, I'm going to Z and zoom back out. I'm going to click off so I can see that red line, and let's track backwards again. Now this is a little bit of the trouble area when the motion blur starts to really become more noticeable. So definitely if you are working on a similar shot, just keep an eye out for this. I don't want to go too far with these masks like over here, because then the mask tracking would have a little more issue, but I don't want it to go too close because then the motion blur would be outside of the mask. So it's all about just trying to find that happy medium. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to go down here and click Export Shape Data. I'm going to find Mocha Shape Data for AE and copy to clipboard. Now let's navigate back to After Effects. I'm going to do Control-Y to create a new solid, and I'm going to call this Blade Matte. And then I'm going to hit Control-V, and nothing happens. So this is a weird issue that I found in Mocha. There may be a workaround. I figured it may be when you first start the project, there may be the solution there, but I haven't been able to figure it out. So if anyone knows, please post it in the comments, and then if there is a solution, I'll post in the description. But here's the issue. Right now, our footage, this is not the actual in point. This is not the first frame of the footage. So, and Mocha recognizes that. So Mocha recognizes this is the section we're working with, and then this is the first frame. So if I copy the shape data like we did to the clipboard and paste it, it pastes it from the first frame and not frame 330, which is the frame that we actually need, which is really unfortunate. I wish there was a faster method. So what I found is, and this took way too long to figure out, go back to After Effects. If your project doesn't have enough room, simply hit Control-K, and down by duration, just buy yourself some extra time. So I'm going to navigate, looking at this, to frame 330, because I know that's the frame I need the shape data from. So let's keep going. I may need to actually buy myself some more room, looks like. Oh, nope. All right, 330, and we could see there is our there's our shape data. It's all the way here when it should be on the first frame. So I'm going to select the blade matte, and I'm going to hit Alt and left bracket, and that trims it right there. And then I know there's a shortcut to make this in point match the header, but I forgot what it was, so I'm just going to manually drag it over. And now it should track with our sword. I'm just going to drop this to quarter resolution. This is 4K, so the playback is a little slow. But this is just a preview and make sure the tracking works. Black sword looks pretty lame, but it should look pretty cool in 1 second. So what I'm going to do is take this blade matte and I'm going to bring it right on top of my footage, select my footage over a track matte. I'm going to make this an alpha matte. Alpha inverted matte. So wherever this black blade matte is, our footage is going to be invisible and our clean plate should be visible. So boom, now our sword is suddenly gone. And if I scroll around, it looks like it worked pretty well. Fantastic. All right, so that's pretty much the majority for Roto and getting rid of the blade. But now to make the blade appear, I'm going to just turn back on the eye, which automatically turns off if you make this, if you made the blade matte, and if you made the footage alpha inverted of the blade matte eyeball will automatically turn off. So I'm just going to turn that back on so I can see what I'm doing. So I need this matte to disappear this way if I want the sword to be visible. So the fastest way I found to do that would be over here in the effects and presets, just type in linear and you can find a linear wipe. I'm just going to drag that onto the blade matte. I don't know why it's automatically keyframe, that's kind of annoying. Well, I'm going to bring this down to 0. Actually, let's bring it up. Bring it up to around 50 or so, just so I can see the angle of this, and I want that angle to match up. So around -50, -60 looks fine. Alright, now I'm going back to the first frame. I'm going to keyframe this and drag it to 0. If I turn off, the blade should be invisible again. And as I scroll through, I know that Mike's eyes follow the blade. So I want where he looks at the top of the blade, that's when I want the blade to be totally visible. So over here, my linear wipe, I'm just going to drag this up, and we should see the blade start to form on, which we do. And we don't need to go all the way to 100, we just need to go to where it's totally revealed, so we'll just leave it 85. And let's just play this back, make sure it looks pretty good. Great. So it does look like our clean plate is a slightly different color than our footage. The clouds were moving around a lot this day. Personally, I think this is negligible, but if you did want to go through and get this to match perfectly, the way I would suggest doing it is going into your clean plate and creating several stills and just patchworking it together. So you can take a frame from here and patchwork this area, and then move here and then patchwork this area and just stitch it together. But again, I think this little slight difference is negligible, especially with all the other effects we're going to be adding on top of it. So here we have pretty much the majority of the roto effect and the reveal of the blade. So now we got to do a little bit more of the fun stuff. So over in my project panel, let's go ahead and name this. Let's see, I'm going to name this comp 1, that's fine, and then clean. Oops. Plate. Clean plate. Clean plate. Alright, back in comp 1. Let's play this through. Cool, that looks good. You know, I actually think I want the blade to start revealing not a little earlier, I think probably right around here. So I'll go back to my blade mat, hit U to see the keyframes. It's going to have all the tracking data, so I'm just going to toggle that up. All I care about is this linear wipe. And let's go to my effects controls. I think I could just do it from here. I just want to set it so it's right before the blade starts appearing, because I know I want this next frame the blade to be on, and then on this frame the blade to be ending. Great. Alright, so I know this frame is right around when this blade should start appearing, so I'll just stay right around there, and I'm going to bring in my flying fireball effect. This is a free effect. If you're not a member of ProductionCrate, it is free to sign up, and it is free to download these two effects that I will be using. I will also put the links in the description, so you guys should be able to navigate there really easily. So I'm just going to bring this effect in and solo it so you guys can see what it looks like. It's just a fireball flying in right to left. Looks pretty cool. It's a little slow, and I know my shot is only about half the speed, so I'm going to click it, right click, go to time stretch, and let's just type in 50 to make it twice as fast. And let's play that back. Cool, that looks like it should be about the right speed, so I'm going to unclick this dot to unsolo it. And I'm going to just go to about the middle of the middle of the comp, and let's just rotate it so it looks like this line should match up pretty well with the sword. Maybe rotate a little bit more. Now I could track this, but I think I'm going to just keyframe it and do it by hand because it's faster and I'm lazy. Alright, so I'm going to select my footage, my fireball effect again. I'm going to hit P for position, hit the stopwatch for keyframe, and is it visible right now? Yeah, it's just on his hand. Okay, so now it's keyframed, and I'm just going to manually move it around until it's right on the blade. And then I want to trim this right here. I don't want any of the fireball before, so I'm going to hold Alt and left bracket to just trim it. And then I'm going to scroll through and find where the blade is totally done revealing, which should be this keyframe, or a little bit before, I guess. Right here. Select my fireball and just manually drag that up. So it should move somewhat with the blade right now. Let's just play it out and see how it looks. Pretty good. It could use a little tweaking, I think, but You know, for now I'd say this is good enough. Let's keep moving forward. So I'll just hit B to make my comp in point right about where the flame starts. And I want to change the color because fire's cool, but green fire is cooler. So I'm just going to drop a hue and saturation. I like doing this because I could just like toggle through and find a look that I like. So, I don't know. Yeah, let's go with green. Maybe like a yellowish green. And on mode, I'm going to change this to add. Let's just play this through again one more time. Okay, looking pretty good. I'm going to duplicate this, and since it's pre-keyed and already colored and everything, for a glow, I'm just going to add a fast blur, and I'm just going to increase this blur. That should give it a little bit more natural of a look. Awesome, we're moving along pretty fast. One thing I'm noticing is that this blade edge is very, very straight here, and that to me makes it look extremely fake. Really fake. It doesn't look like a real fantasy flame sword coming out of nowhere. It looks like a fake fantasy flame sword coming out of nowhere. So I'm going to select this fireball that only has the hue and saturation, not the one with the fast blur, and I'm going to duplicate it by hitting Control D. Hit twice. Okay, Control D, and I just want to color this something different so I know that it's different. Alright, so I have that one. I want an adjustment layer now. So to make an adjustment layer really quickly, I do Control Alt Y. Now I have an adjustment layer here, and with this adjustment layer selected, I want to put on a turbulent displace. Awesome, which just gives it this cool warpy look. So I want to increase the amount a little bit and maybe decrease the size. Maybe something around here. Maybe let's decrease the amount just a little bit more. I guess we can mess with some settings, maybe increase the complexity. Cool, so I only want this displacement, which I will name. I only want this displacement to be visible underneath the flame, as if the heat is causing the displacement to happen. So this newest fireball effect, I'm just going to drag above my displacement and then select my displacement, go to track matte, alpha matte, footage, flying fireball. So now underneath that straight edge we had before, if I turn this off you can see it, now is all mushed up and natural and organic looking. So just to stay organized, I know these two are paired together, so I'm going to go over here, right click on these labels and just select a color so I know these two always go together. That is just a good way to stay organized. So let's just play this through again really quickly. It's kind of a mistake, but that clean plate that was there before that's a slightly different color actually almost looks like a light flare that's coming off of the blade, which I actually really like. Okay, so I want to add a little more detail to this flame. I think I want to add some kind of secondary element. So I'm going to select this flame, I'm going to duplicate it again by hitting Control D, and I just want to delay it by like 1 frame. So let's just drag that over 1 frame. Ciao. And I'm going to add a simple choker to this. I'm just going to solo it so you can see what I'm doing here. So this is without the simple choker effect applied. If I increase it, you can see it kind of like pinches it in and squeezes it on the edges. So that'll kind of give it kind of like a leftover flames look as the main fireball kind of drags through. And maybe let's delay it a couple more frames. Let's just play this out, see how it looks. I think it's close. Maybe let's delay only 1 less frame. Awesome. So I like this look for the flame and for the reveal. I think that's pretty much done. That's how I'm going to keep it. But I feel like there needs to be some kind of impact when this thing first starts appearing. So for that, I decided to use one of our particle burst effect. I'm just going to use particle burst 1. And I'm going to drag that on here, and I'll just solo it so you can see what it looks like. It's just these cool particles that kind of explode out with some turbulence in the air. I'm going to unsolo that and drag it on top of the blade. And this should be, I'm going to use control and left and right arrow to move frame by frame. So I want this to appear right as the flame is appearing. So that's this frame, and I want to change the color of it. So this time I'm going to type in tritone, and let's select the midtones, and let's find a good green color, maybe something right around there. Let's play that out. It's looking a little too Ninja Turtle green for me. Let's select, maybe make it, there we go, a little more blue. And I'm also going to change the mode to add. Maybe we drop the opacity down a touch. And let's just add a blur because those particles are pretty sharp. So 2 should be fine. Cool, so that gives it a little extra punch right when the flame starts appearing. I'm going to do the same thing I did with this displacement. So I'm going to duplicate this particle burst. I'm going to also duplicate this displacement, and I'm going to drag this displacement under the particle burst. So what that's doing now, because this track matte is still set to alpha matte, wherever this particle burst is visible, this displacement will be happening. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before with the labels, just so I don't get confused later on. I'm just going to label those both the same color. And I want the displacement to be underneath the color, so I'm just going to drag it underneath my initial particle burst. Alright, hope that wasn't too much explanation for you guys. So that's pretty cool. I'm not seeing enough displacement, so what I'm going to do is actually blur out this particle burst a little bit. Oh, it's very blurred. I'm going to increase the blur, which should kind of blur out and increase the displacement as well. And I will also increase the size a little bit. I can turn it off. It doesn't need to be visible. It's just working as a alpha matte for displacement. So what I'm going to do here is add in a lightning effect. I think maybe it'll like go down his arm and hit the hilt, and then the blade will grow out. I think that should look pretty cool. So I'm going to hit Control Y to make a new solid, and I'm just going to call this Lightning 1, because I assume I'll make one for each arm. And then over here in the effects and presets, let's type in lightning and grab that advanced lightning and bring it over. I want to be able to control the lightning with these 2 anchor points. So over in lightning type, I'm just going to make it a 2-way strike. And that lets me have direct control of exactly where they are. So I'm going to navigate to where the blade first starts to appear. And I'm going to drag my lightning over here. And I think I want it to kind of like strike and then shrink in. So I'm just going to set it up like that and keyframe all these. And then let's navigate back an arbitrary number of frames. And let's kind of move the lightning up. And then I'm just going to trim it here by hitting, again, Alt, left bracket to trim that in point, and B to trim the comp. And then let's just play it out and see how it looks. So I do want the lightning to be totally gone. Maybe here, maybe it kind of sticks around for a little bit. So I'll just move it. I'm going to hit U for keyframes and just make sure I drag it to the end of the layer so it's not static at all. Let's play that out again. That's cool. I think it's just too fast though, so let's buy ourselves a little extra time. It's pretty cool. So I'm just going to go through a little bit and move it. You guys just move it however you think looks cool. And then I'm going to do this for the left arm as well. And I'm going to change the color here over in glow settings, I believe. Glow color, and let's make this like a kind of yellowish color maybe, and we can bring down the glow radius because we're really losing a lot of detail there. It's looking pretty cool. Maybe I want this to stay higher and then this to kind of strike in. I'm going to duplicate the lightning and I'm going to hit U, and let's just get rid of origin, direction, lightning type, but we'll leave conductivity state keyframed. And let's just change around a little bit so this lightning comes in from this hand as well. We can make it maybe come up a little higher on the elbow or something. I think it'll work for now. Adrian's a lot better at doing lightning stuff than I am, so should have had him do this portion. But I'm going to take these two lightning solids and drag them underneath my other effects. So when the fireballs do appear, they'll be on top of the lightning. And let's just play that out. Cool. I'm just going to mess with the color for the lightning a little bit more. Maybe green does make more sense. I'm going to change the blending mode of these to an add as well, which made it maybe a little too bright. So maybe let's try a lighten instead. Yeah, that looks better. And let's play that out. Great, I think we're getting there. The one thing I know that we're missing is some kind of a green glow on Mike as well, because this flame would be casting at least a little bit of a glow. So we're clearly getting a little too busy here in our composition, but I'm going to, one more time, I'm going to take a fireball. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to bring it up to the top. And I'm just going to delete this fast blur that was on this one. I'm going to hit U, and let's get rid of that position keyframe as well. So now we pretty much just have our regular fireball with the hue and saturation coloring that we added. Awesome. So now we have that. I'm going to unsolo it. I want this to appear at the same time that the fireball appears here. So this is going to function as the glow. So I'm just going to rotate it so it kind of rotates, is in line with his body. So this should move upwards. I'm just going to place it here. I'm going to hit P, bring up the keyframe, toggle that stopwatch, and let's just go up. It looks like it actually moves pretty well. We don't need to keyframe the position again, I don't think. That should do the trick. So obviously that doesn't look good yet. So what I want to do is add a fast blur to it. Let's just increase that. And I'm going to hit T, bring up opacity, and let's drop that down. Maybe blur it out a little bit more. And then one more time I'm going to create a matte. So I'm going to hit Control Y. I'm going to call this Glow Matte. And that just creates a new solid. I'm going to turn it off so I can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to hit G, which brings up my pen tool. And I just want to draw around where I want this glow to be visible. So maybe it's visible here. Maybe it gets visible around his face a little bit here, but not right there on the nose. And this really doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not going to take much time with it. Maybe a little glow on the hand here as well. Cool. So now if I turn back on the matte, so wherever this black matte is, the glow that I created will be visible here. Awesome. So I'm going to change track matte to alpha matte, glow matte. And I'm going to hit F with my glow matte selected so we can feather it out. Maybe just 8 or so. And I know he moves around a little bit, so I'm going to hit M to bring up my mask path, and let's just keyframe that. So I'm going to hit V to bring up my selection tool, and let's just go frame by frame. I'm going to zoom in and hold spacebar to kind of navigate around. And let's keep going frame by frame. And I just don't want the glow to be visible back here. I think that'll kind of ruin the illusion. Cool, so let's check this out. I think that works pretty well. I think it looks a lot better when it's towards his face. I think it looks a little too fake and weird down towards the body. So I just want to fade that in. So I'm going to go to where I think it looks good, maybe right around here on his shoulders, and I'm going to keyframe that current opacity. And then I'm just going to navigate to where it starts, and I'm going to drop the opacity to 0. So now it should fade on. Awesome, that looks pretty good. I'm going to increase the blur, bring it up to 100, 102. Cool. I think it still looks a little weird right here, so I'm going to bring this opacity keyframe over a touch, and this one as well. There it is. Cool. So I think this is pretty much everything I had in the preview. So this shot is 4K. So what I want to do now is add a little fake pan in post. A little fake pan and a little fake push. So I'm going to stop that playing. I'm going to hit Control A, so I select everything, right click and pre-compose, move all attributes in new composition, and then I'm going to hit Control K. Right now this is set to 4K, but I actually want it 1920 by 1080. And then I want to transform and fit to comp. So now I can see exactly what I'm working with. So I'd say right around here I want to push in. So I'm going to hit scale and drag that scale keyframe here, and now just scale in. Maybe right around there. And I also want to hit position. Let's keyframe the position, and as the sword reveals, I think the camera should kind of pan up with it. So I'm going to zoom out and make sure I have enough room and just pan right around there. So let's play that out, see how it looks. Awesome. It's looking pretty cool. I think I do want it to push a little bit faster here. And maybe also just start right around here. So I'll hit B and let's try that. Cool. I'm liking it. I think it needs a little natural handheld feel. So by my position, I'm going to alt click that stopwatch and let's type in wiggle, low number, maybe 2 and 10. So there'll just be a slight wiggle that's going on. I'm going to increase this a little bit, maybe let's try 20. Awesome, that's looking pretty good. And now I just need to enable the motion blur. So hit toggle switch mode if you don't see the motion blur icon here. And then with my pre-comp selected, I'm going to toggle that. And then up here, I'm going to make sure I have motion blur enabled. So now if I push in, you see that kind of zoom feel. That's happening because of the motion blur. And let's just play it out. Awesome, and that's it. That is the Fantasy Magic Sword tutorial. We will be adding new flame effects, and they will be pre-keyed as well. So if you want the sword to be on fire, all you'd have to do is track it. I would again suggest tracking in Mocha and just applying a flame in a similar technique, but I thought it looked cooler just like this. Alright guys, that's it for this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, it would mean a lot. Also, if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments, or email us, Facebook us, Twitter us, Instagram us, snail mail us, smoke signal us, telepathically contact us, tell a friend of a friend of a friend to talk to us. However you want to ask us questions, we are more than happy to answer them. Alright guys, thanks a lot, and until next time.